Chapter 4.
Nebuchadnezzar, the king, unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in mine house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of mine head in my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew, and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the bowels thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, and an holy one came down from heaven. And he cried aloud and said thus, Hew down the tree, and cut off his branches, shake off his leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation. But thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee.
Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said,
Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee.
Belteshazzar answered and said,
My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown, and reacheth unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and an holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew the tree down, and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beast of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee. After that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility.
All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said,
Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty?
While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying,
O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will.
The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws.
And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom mine honor and brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment.
In terms of the humbling, well, first of all, is the humiliation and restoration of Nebuchadnezzar. This chapter focuses on God's humbling a proud man. It deals with Nebuchadnezzar's punishment and pride. This chapter has a theme in chapter 4 and verse 25. Till thou know that the Most High rule in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he wills. And that is a reminder for us always to remember, not only in the office that you work, in the place that you work, or in church, or even if you want to take on public office at any point in time in your life, you may get a post, but God can take it.
Yes.
He will give it to whomsoever he wills. Alright? Yeah, sometimes, we feel as if ministry and the things of God can't go on unless we did. And you'll be amazed to know how quickly God can replace you. The children of Israel felt that they were the elite and they were the chosen one of God. And God put them aside for a while until blindness come upon them, and now we're using outsiders, the Gentile world. And we are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are the covenant, they are the chosen one, they are the selected one. And God packed them up. And if God can pack up Israel, he can do the same to us as well. He is the one that rules in the kingdom of men, and he giveth it whomsoever he wills. Alright? And very interesting. So after the records of chapter 1, 2, and 3, the humbling of Gentile power by God, and the bringing of the world in subjection to himself in light of what God said in chapter 2, can see the climax of Nebuchadnezzar's spiritual journey. Nebuchadnezzar himself would have written this chapter, or Daniel, or even another scribe. Now, it is interesting because the chapter starts off by saying Nebuchadnezzar the king, and then we will see a little lower where it indicates I, Nebuchadnezzar, was addressed. So there seems to be evidence within the chapter that this chapter was actually written by a political leader of the Gentile world. Alright? And you will notice that this is the exact same pattern the New Testament will write, where you'll see I, Paul, or I, Peter, servant of the Lord, I, James, and so you'll see the same record. I, Daniel, a servant of the Lord. Here you see I, Nebuchadnezzar, alright, was at rest. So from within the chapter, there seems to be a direct indication that Nebuchadnezzar is recalling his spiritual experience of God. Alright? So from chapters 4, verses 1, 2, and 3, his writing is similar to the opening of the Pauline epistles, as we see him under conviction, and there is evidence that this king was overwhelmed by what God did for him. Here we see that the same God is able to save any human soul, from the poor and lowly to the high, the haughty, and the mighty. Now, for those of us who just pray that the political leaders can be saved, I want to tell you that this is a good chapter to show that that is possible. Because he is the government, or he is the leader of the political Babylon that controls the entire world. So when you feel you're so high and nobody can reach you, or nobody can talk to you, God will deal with you. Alright? And if Nebuchadnezzar could get saved, anybody in public office could get saved. Are you there with me? Alright? From verses 4 down to verse 9, once again God revealed truth, came to a pagan king, as everything God told Nebuchadnezzar was going to happen in his lifetime took place as the Lord said. So here, again, watch what you're thinking about before you go to sleep. He says here that he was flourishing in his palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid. But he about to get afraid because he thought it. Thoughts what? Came upon his bed, and the visions of his head troubled him. So he has this dream. So really, Nebuchadnezzar gets a dream from God about his own life and what is going to happen to his own life. And yet, sometimes people just get a word from God, and not because they get a word from God make you spiritual. It's when you get a word from God and you obey, then you're spiritual. Alright? Then you're spiritual. So flourishing in my palace was a place of security and prosperity. He was surrounded by wealth and power, but he became afraid of this dream that he had. Once again, there is a pool of wise men that couldn't help in supernatural insight, and a door was once again opened for Daniel. So we find here that he had magicians and astrologers and the Chaldeans and the soothsayers, and he come and tell them a dream, and then of course they resort to God's people last. You know, you have some people who do that. They come to church last. They have a problem and they go by this one, and they go up Moruga, and they go on Citrus, and they go across the Carcass, and they go all over the place. And they go in the night by this one, and they visit that one, and when nobody can help them, then they come to find out if only church could help me. So, but at last, he looked for Daniel. Last. Some people like to come to God last. Don't come last, come first. Come last, so you'll save yourself a lot of time and a lot of headache. So it is called the tree dream, and I'm talking about the plant. And again, you will see the concept here that the earth is a flat disc, and there is this tree that grows out of the earth and reaches to the heavens. And you will notice that the height thereof was great, and you will notice that every single creature on the earth actually find their refuge under the tree. Now, if Nebuchadnezzar is a world government, that means every people on the face of the earth is under his rulership, his dictatorship, but also too as well their nourished, their means of living and so on, is all run under the Babylonian system. So you find the tree grew, was strong, the height thereof reached to the heaven, and the side thereof was to the ends of the earth. So you have a one world government system that is there. The leaves are fair, the fruit thereof much. The meat is for all the beasts of the field came and shadow over it, fowls of the air. Everybody came to feed. Everybody came to live under the influence of the Babylonian and Nebuchadnezzar system. Are you there with me? Alright? Very interesting. Now, Nebuchadnezzar could recall the dream, but it shook his mind and his security. That's why God can give some dream could really frighten you. Alright? He saw the greatness of the tree that catered for all that dwell on the earth. So no matter where people live, you are under the rulership of Nebuchadnezzar. A watcher from the Holy One came from heaven. So here you have the activities of angels in the ancient world. And you will actually see that they begin to operate and they begin to influence. So you'll see here you have a watcher and a Holy One. And there's a lot of teaching in the spiritual warfare. In spiritual world talks about watchers, watch of the night, and the Holy Ones and so on. So these are different categories of angelic being that actually move back and forth like a postman between heaven and earth to be able to give direction. So we have categories of these individuals. The king was told that it was directed to him, and more so the thoughts and the intentions of his heart. So when Daniel began to explain all that it is, when you see the tree being cut down, and there is brass and iron that wrapped around the body of the tree, so it's chopped off but the root is left. He's then told that it is actually him. You will notice here that there seems to be a transformation. In reality, Nebuchadnezzar went mad. He lost his mind, he lost his heart, and the scripture says here in verse 16 that a man's heart was replaced by a beast's heart. Not beauty and the beast, not the beast. And he is driven from man, and he's allowed to roam the earth as an animal. If you didn't believe in werewolf and you see here, I believe in werewolf. For 7 times, which means 7 years. Again, pointing or doing a parallel to the 7-year tribulation period in the future, when the world will seem as if it has gone lost. So this is a matter that is decreed by the watchers, and it is demanded by the words of the Holy One, to the intent that the living will know what? That the Most High rules in the affairs of men, and he can do whatsoever he wills. He could set up one, as well as he can make someone a base. So in verse 19, here we have where you see Nebuchadnezzar is indicating what is going on. Verse 19, there is evidence that Daniel knew at once what the interpretation meant, but it troubled him greatly, because you'll actually see evidence where Daniel was astonished for an hour. I feel he knew the answer immediately. How are you telling the man that? How are you telling the man you are about to go mad? When you walk up to your governor and tell him that. You know, something you get some revelation. It's one thing to get a revelation, the next thing to want to tell them that listen now, God will burn your cuckoo just now. Alright? Trouble coming in your pathway. So he's astonished. Sometimes as ministers, we are reluctant to reveal things that affect people around us. Remember, Daniel is working for this man. So it's his boss, it is his employer that is here. He must be afraid for your life. In spite of the relationship, he must disclose the weighty judgment. The weighty judgment. From verse 20 to verse 27, he begins to tell him what the tree is and how everybody is being nourished by the tree. And then he says in verse 20, he says, you is the tree. It is thou, O king. You have grown, you get strong, you get great, you reach heaven, your domination reaches the ends of the earth. Alright? And it is saying, listen, if you feel that you reach too high, God could bring you down. The Bible talks about if any man thinks he stand, take heed lest he fall. Daniel declares who the tree is and showed him the meaning of the stump with iron and brass. That means the tree will not be completely destroyed, it's protected. The kingdom will be taken and then restored to him when he comes back to his senses. In verse 23, We see 7 times probably mentions it or refers to 7 years. It cannot be 7 days or 7 months, because you'll notice his hair grows and his nail grows. Alright? And that means that the evidence definitely point to the fact of it being 7 years for Nebuchadnezzar to actually have hair like feathers. You know, like feathers. Heaven to rule is used in the Old Testament. This is one of the only place it is found as opposed to God who rules. So not only do you see here, but of course heaven and God means the same thing, but it is actually linking the two, indicating that heaven or God rules. Now in verse 27, we see here, and we see evidence in verse 27 that God gives him an if option. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be accepted unto thee, and watch this, and break off thy sin by righteousness, and thy iniquity by showing mercy to the poor. That means there were people under his rule that he was abusing. He was not taking care of the pure poor. He was not helping the individuals that really needed help. So he had a flourishing, prospering, growing, advanced kingdom, and people were still under his heels. I know when the poor cry out, what is here? That's why when you give to the poor, the Bible says you lend to the Lord. Alright? So he is given a stern warning, and I think this took a lot of guts from Daniel to tell him to say, you better change your ways. Scripture says, be sure your sin will find you out. Alright? So he is given the instructions to do. Now, it came to pass at the end of 12 months, he walked into the palace of the kingdom. So 12 months later, 1 year later, especially when you're busy and so on, so you could get some powerful word from what you forget, you know. Here what he declares, the king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom? And he started to indicate that he has built with my power and my majesty. So you can actually see a trinity of myself. There is what I build, my power and my majesty. You understand? So you have clear evidence there of pride. And your Bible says pride comes before a fall. Will he fall? While he is yet talking, one of the watchers, one of the holy ones, makes a declaration in the supernatural world because of his rebellion and his pride. And instantly, he gone mad. Instantly, he gone mad. So 1 year later, pride speaks from the heart of the king, and the voice from heaven spake that begins to fulfill, or the fulfillment of the dream. This is Babylon, which I have built. Babylon was actually a very prosperous city, had wide avenues that bisected the entire city. They had crossroads. They had a processional street that was 100 yards long, beautiful, with enamel brick displaying lion, dragons, and oxen. Now, we know what lion is, we know what oxen is, and of course we know also the evidence of dragon in the ancient world. Here it is. Any more members here? Let me tell you this one. Here what the man have, right? The man had a banquet hall that can seat 10,000 people. That's stadium. 10,000 people. So when you go in to feast with the king, brother, depending on where you see them, you may not be able to see it. 10,000 people. It was famous for the hanging gardens, the 7th wonder of the world. And what actually did is that he built this thing like a tower. Put a garden on top there. But it was done on a plain, because the entire Mesopotamian plain is a flat surface. So you could be miles, 20, 30, 40 miles away, and you could see the garden. The most remarkable side of the hanging garden is the water system. Because Nebuchadnezzar had built an irrigation system without pumps that allowed water to flow up to the garden and water the garden. And even with the advanced knowledge and technology we have today, people have not been able to duplicate how he actually did the watering of this garden. So three important questions arise from this incident. Could this happen to a man? Well, if it happened to Nebuchadnezzar, it can happen to any individual. And there is a medical terminology of medical research that is done where someone can actually lose their mind and their hand and think that they are beasts. God brought him down, and it will be God who will bring down the Gentile kingdom. The counsellors took care of it during the period of the time of the king's life. So when he gone mad, you had individuals or other individuals to run the kingdom as deputy while they wait for his madness to pass. Alright? So very, very, very frightening particular situation that is here. Verse 34 to 36, we find that after the 7 years, so the same way Nebuchadnezzar had lost the entire kingdom, is the same way the Gentile world in the future will lose the control over the earth. At the end of the day, Nebuchadnezzar lifted up his eyes unto heaven and his understanding returned. And what did he do this time? He blessed the Most High. And he praised and honored him that lives forever, having dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. Although he might allow human beings to run it on earth, God is still in control. Are you there with me? He's still in control. Alright? So, the kingdom is restored unto him. And in verse 37, we see now when he declares, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and honor the who? The King of heaven, all whose works are true, and his ways, judgment, and those that walk in pride, he is able to abase." He is able to abase. So there is clear evidence that Nebuchadnezzar, if I were to use the Christian word, he got saved. He got saved. Sometimes God will take people to some very, very frightening experience to bring them to the same place that they will recognize that there is a God in heaven. Because of their pride and because of their continual rebellion, God can bring them to the counter place that they recognize. So Nebuchadnezzar walks out of scripture as he gives honor to the King of heaven, being in the office of the King of the earth. This King of kings on earth recognized that there is a King of kings in heaven. If God can save this king, he can save any person that is in public or political office. Are you there with me? I want to just highlight one other issue that is here. In chapter 2, Daniel tells Nebuchadnezzar that you are King of kings on the earth. He's the king over Babylon, the king over the Medes and Persian, the Grecian, the Roman Empire, and the future one. Only one person holds that office, and that's Nebuchadnezzar's King of Kings. Are you there with me? It's not the German on the road that is he coming back. The one person is King of Kings over the entire period of the time of the Gentiles. When this happened to him, Nebuchadnezzar recognized that although he is King of Kings on the earth, there is a King of Kings in heaven. So what he does is that he subjects his life, he subjects his office, he subjects his rulership to the King of Kings in heaven. Are you there with me? That is why when Jesus is coming in Revelation 19, he is coming in the office of King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because a human being on earth that had the office subjected the office on earth to the one in heaven. Are you there with me? That's why it doesn't matter what the Antichrist do or any future world ruler does. The person who had the office and the person who is the head of the entire system already handed over to the King of heaven. Are you there with me? Alright? So when Jesus is coming back, he is coming back with the office that Nebuchadnezzar hands him over in this chapter as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And therefore, that gives God the right, or Jesus the right, to destroy the entire time of the Gentiles of Babylon, Medes and Persian, Greece, and Roman Empire, because the head of the thing given the right. You all follow me? Alright? So very, very interesting in terms of what's going on. And I really hope that nobody ever has to experience something like this in order for you to be able to come to the knowledge of God. Alright? Because it means, therefore, that takes a lot to be. Listen, it is better we humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God, and He will exalt us in due time. So He's able to pay the person that is abased, He's exalted. If you feel you're exalted, He'll bring it up. There's one portion of scripture that says, whosoever fall upon me shall be broken. Whosoever I fall upon, but grind it to powder. I rather fall and be broken than he fall on me and grind me to powder.